Everyone loves the highlight reels, the buzzer beaters, the championships, the million-dollar contracts, the bright lights, the fame, the fortune. But what they don't see, what they don't want to see, is the price behind that glory. Because the NBA, for all its glitz and glamour, has a dark side. Behind every shining superstar, there's a trail of blood, sweat, and broken spirits. Behind every sellout crowd is a player battling demons that money can't fix. And behind every million-dollar endorsement, there's a young man who sacrificed his childhood, his mental health, and sometimes even his soul. This league doesn't just create stars, it also breaks them. And if you think it's all fun and games, let me take you behind the curtain. Let me show you the truth they don't post on Instagram. Mental health battles hidden in silence. The NBA is often portrayed as the ultimate dream, the place where talent meets opportunity and legends are made. But beneath the surface of that dream lies a brutal reality that few dare to speak about: mental health. For years, the league operated under a code of silence. Players were expected to be warriors, physically tough, emotionally numb, and always locked in. There was no room for weakness, no space to be vulnerable. Admitting you were struggling mentally was once seen as a sign of failure. So players kept quiet. They smiled in interviews, they dropped 30 points on the court, and then they went home and suffered in silence. What the fans don't see is what happens after the final buzzer. Behind closed doors, some of the biggest names in basketball have battled with anxiety, depression, and crippling self-doubt. These are men in their 20s and 30s, praised by millions, idolized by kids. And yet, some of them can't sleep at night. The pressure to maintain greatness, the fear of letting everyone down, the weight of carrying a franchise, it gets heavy. And the more successful you are, the more isolated you become. It's lonely at the top, and in the NBA, that loneliness is deafening. Many of these players grew up in environments where mental health wasn't even a conversation. They were taught to tough it out, to man up, to fight through pain. So when the depression hit, when the anxiety attack started before a game, they didn't ask for help. They internalized it. They hid it. They put on a brave face, because showing any emotional struggle could cost them everything: endorsements, playing time, even their place in the league. The system was built to reward performance, not healing. And that's the dangerous part. When your pain is invisible, no one knows how bad you're bleeding. The media doesn't help. Fans see a missed shot and call a player trash on social media. Commentators question their killer instinct. Headlines read like hit pieces. No one stops to ask what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe that player just lost a family member. Maybe he's battling depression and barely got out of bed. But none of that matters when your life is constantly under a microscope. In this league, you're not just playing basketball. You're fighting for your humanity in a world that only cares about your stats. Even when players finally speak out, when they find the courage to say, "I'm not okay," they're often met with backlash or disbelief. You make millions, how can you be depressed? They're told. As if money erases pain, as if fame guarantees peace. But the truth is, no amount of fame can protect you from yourself. Mental health doesn't discriminate, and in the NBA, the silence surrounding it has cost some players their joy, their careers, and even their lives. This is the side of the league they don't show, the silent battles being fought in locker rooms, hotel rooms, and minds. The pressure to perform 24/7. When you step onto that NBA court, you're not just playing a game, you're stepping into a global spotlight. Millions are watching, millions are judging. One night you're a hero, the next you're a disappointment. The demand for perfection is constant. Fans, coaches, executives, they don't just want greatness, they expect it. Every game is a test, every possession a chance to either rise or fall. And the pressure doesn't stop when the final buzzer sounds. In this league, you're expected to be on all the time. physically sharp, emotionally stable, and mentally locked in. There's no off switch, no timeouts in life. For most players, the fear of failure is paralyzing. They know one bad game can lead to criticism. A bad week, trade rumors. A bad season, you're out of the league. The margin for error is razor thin. That pressure starts to eat away at you, slowly but surely. You start overthinking every move, every shot, every decision. It's not just about winning, it's about surviving. And the terrifying part is, the better you get, the more pressure there is. The target on your back only gets bigger, expectations grow, and the freedom to fail disappears. Then there's the relentless grind. The travel schedule is brutal. Back-to-back games in different time zones, barely any sleep, constant media obligations. Players are expected to perform at peak levels despite physical exhaustion, jet lag, or personal struggles. There's no space to breathe. Your body might be in New York, but your mind is still in that game you lost 2 nights ago in LA. You're never really present. You're always either preparing for the next challenge or haunted by the last one. It's a cycle that wears you down mentally, and no one claps for the effort if the result isn't perfect. Social media adds another layer of pressure that previous generations never faced. Every mistake is instantly turned into a meme. Every loss is dissected by millions of strangers who know nothing about the game or the player behind the jersey. And it's not just fans. Team management watches everything. Coaches look for any sign of weakness. One moment of hesitation, one slump, and your role could change. You could go from starting lineup to bench, from superstar to scapegoat. The league moves fast, and it has no patience for vulnerability. What people don't realize is that this kind of pressure builds over time. It doesn't just affect your game, it affects your sleep, your relationships, your ability to trust people. You start to see yourself as a product, not a person. You stop playing for the love of the game and start playing to avoid criticism. That's when the joy starts to disappear. That's when the weight of expectation becomes heavier than the ball in your hands, and that's when players begin to crumble. Not because they're weak, but because they're human, broken families, and lost childhoods. For many NBA players, basketball wasn't just a game, it was an escape from poverty, from violence, from broken homes, absent fathers, or overworked single mothers. Before they ever stepped onto a professional court, most of these athletes had already been through more pain than people twice their age. Their childhoods weren't filled with joy or innocence, they were filled with survival. And in that chaos, basketball became the one thing that made sense. A ball, a rim, a dream. That was the only way out. Not just from the streets, but from the weight of everything they were never supposed to carry. These players weren't groomed for stardom, they were hardened by life. While other kids were learning how to ride bikes or play video games, they were learning how to grow up fast, how to stay out of trouble, how to walk to school without getting jumped, how to deal with the pain of seeing their mom cry when rent was overdue. They carried trauma like it was part of their uniform. And by the time the NBA came calling, many had already seen more than most people ever will. But trauma doesn't disappear when you sign a contract. It follows you into the locker room, into the hotel rooms, into the silence after a tough loss. You see the highlight reels, the dunks, the flash, the money, but you don't see the scars, the emotional ones. The ones that come from growing up with nothing and being expected to carry everyone on your back the moment you make it. The guilt that comes with success when your people are still struggling. The pressure to provide for your family, your friends, your whole community. It's not just basketball anymore. It's a lifeline. And when you're the only one who made it out, you feel like you're never allowed to fail. Because if you fall, everyone else falls too. This kind of upbringing builds mental toughness, sure, but it also leaves deep wounds. Trust becomes a luxury. Vulnerability becomes a weakness. Love becomes transactional. Players start to question everyone's intentions. Do they care about me or just what I can give them? Relationships become complicated, friendships fade, family tension rises. And that little boy who just wanted to play ball is now a grown man with the weight of generations on his shoulders. But no one asks how he's doing. They just cheer when he scores, boo when he misses, and forget he's still human. And the saddest part, most of these players never got to be kids. They didn't get childhoods. They got responsibilities. They were expected to be men before they even had time to understand who they were. And even now, as professionals, as public figures, they're still trying to heal wounds that fame and fortune can't touch. The NBA didn't break them, life did, long before the draft. But in the bright lights of the league, all of that pain gets hidden behind the smile for the cameras, behind the jersey, behind the game, exploitation by the system. The NBA is a business, a billion-dollar entertainment machine, and while the game may be pure, the system behind it isn't. Young athletes, many still in their teens, are thrown into a world they don't fully understand. They're praised as the future, labeled as prodigies, and handed contracts with more zeros than they've ever seen. But what looks like opportunity is often just exploitation dressed up in designer clothes. These young men are valuable assets, not people, and the system is built to squeeze everything it can out of them before they even know what hit them. Scouts start watching kids as early as middle school. By the time they're in high school, they're already part of the machine. AAU tournaments, college recruiters, highlight reels on social media. It becomes less about development and more about exposure. Less about growth and more about marketing. The kid becomes a brand. And when he finally reaches the league, he's already been conditioned to think of himself not as a person, but as a product, a walk-in investment, something to be sold, traded, marketed, and monetized. Behind the scenes, there are agents, handlers, executives, and corporations, all lining up with one goal: profit. Everyone wants a piece. Everyone has advice. Everyone has a plan, but none of them are thinking long-term for the athlete's well-being. They're thinking about what he can do now, how many jerseys he can sell, how many sponsorships he can land, how many years his body will last before the next young star replaces him. The player becomes a commodity, and once he's no longer profitable, he's discarded and forgotten. Many players enter the league financially uneducated, emotionally underdeveloped, and psychologically unprepared. They're given money, fame, and responsibility all at once, but no roadmap, no guidance, no real support system. Sure, there are programs and mentors, but the truth is, most of the learning comes from painful, expensive lessons. Trust the wrong person and your money's gone. Sign the wrong contract and your freedom is limited. Speak up too much and you're labeled difficult. The system doesn't nurture, it uses. And here's the darkest part. The system relies on their ignorance. It depends on them not asking questions, not reading the fine print, not realizing their power. Because once a player wakes up, once he understands how much control he should have, the game changes. But most never get that far. They're too busy trying to keep up, trying to survive, trying not to let down the people who depended on them their whole lives. And by the time they figure it out, it's often too late. The system got what it wanted and moved on. Financial mismanagement and bankruptcy. To the outside world, an NBA contract is a golden ticket. Millions of dollars overnight. Flashy cars, designer clothes, million-dollar mansions. But what most people never see, what they'll never understand, is how fast it can all disappear. Because the truth is, a shocking number of NBA players go broke within just a few years of retiring. The numbers don't lie. And it's not because they're irresponsible, it's because they were never taught how to manage wealth. They were handed everything, but shown nothing. Most players come from environments where money was scarce. When you grow up watching your mom struggle to pay rent or your dad disappear under debt, no one teaches you how to invest, how to save, or how to say no when everyone's asking for a piece. So when the checks start rolling in, it feels like freedom, but it's actually a trap. Because now everyone thinks you've made it. Family members start calling, old friends come back around, strangers suddenly act like they've known you forever. Everyone's got a handout, and you feel obligated to help. Then come the financial predators. Shady advisors, slick-talking agents, fake business partners. They see a young, rich athlete who doesn't know how taxes work, doesn't understand contracts, doesn't question the numbers, and they take advantage of that. Players sign bad deals, invest in scams, or get locked into lifestyles they can't afford to maintain. Private jets, luxury brands, entourages of 10 or more people who don't contribute anything but expect everything. It becomes a circus, and the players footing the bill for everyone. The league hands out money, but it doesn't hand out wisdom. The rookie orientation covers the basics, sure, but you can't undo years of financial ignorance in one seminar. And while some players figure it out early, hire the right people, build generational wealth, most learn the hard way. The money runs out faster than they thought, the taxes hit harder than expected, the contracts end, but the bills keep coming. Suddenly that dream house is in foreclosure. The cars are repossessed, the phones go silent, and the same people who were there for the spending vanish when it's time to rebuild. What no one tells you is that in the NBA, your earning window is small. Most players don't last more than a few seasons, and if you blow your money trying to live like a superstar, you're done before you even realize the game is over. But pride keeps most from admitting they need help, so they suffer in silence, ashamed, trying to maintain the illusion. That's the part the cameras never catch. The man who once had everything, now quietly trying to figure out how to start over. Not just financially, but emotionally. Injury and the fear of being replaced in the NBA. Your body is your value. It's your identity, your currency, your livelihood. Every dunk, every sprint, every defensive stop is paid for with your knees, your back, your ankles. But what fans don't realize is that with every step on that hardwood floor, there's a silent fear running through a player's mind. What if this is the moment everything ends? One bad landing, one awkward twist, one collision at full speed, and it could all be over. The money, the fame, the dream, gone in an instant. Because in this league, injuries don't just hurt your body, they threaten your entire future. Some injuries are quick and violent, broadcasted in slow motion for the world to gasp at, but others are invisible. Stress fractures, tendon inflammation, lingering pain that gets worse with every game, and still players push through. Why? Because in the NBA, weakness is punished. If you sit out, someone else gets your minute. If you're out too long, you fall out of the rotation. Suddenly a rookie is shining in your spot. A coach starts rethinking his lineup. The team starts winning without you. And just like that, you become a footnote. Replaceable, forgotten. The pressure to play through pain is real. It's glorified. Players are praised for toughing it out, but no one talks about what it costs. Some take painkillers just to get through the first quarter. Others tape up injuries so tightly they can barely move, just to avoid missing another game. And deep down, they know. Every time they step on the court hurt, they're gambling with their careers. But the fear of losing their spot, their paycheck, their relevance, that fear outweighs the pain. So they play, they limp, they grind until the body breaks for real. And when that happens, when the injury is too severe to hide, the silence is loud. The fans move on, the cameras point elsewhere, the team starts thinking about trades. Rehab becomes a lonely place. You go from sold-out arenas to empty training rooms, from highlight reels to hospital visits. And the mental toll is devastating because for the first time, you realize the game doesn't need you like you thought it did. The team will survive. The league will move on. But you're left questioning who you are without the game. That's the cruel irony of the NBA. You spend your entire life fighting to get there, and once you do, You live every day terrified it'll be taken from you. Injury isn't just pain, it's betrayal. Your own body turns against you. And in a league that never stops, time away means falling behind. Every comeback is a battle, not just to heal, but to prove you still belong. Because if you can't produce, if you can't perform, if you're not the player you used to be, someone younger, faster, and cheaper is already warming up in your shadow. Mental health battles in silence, behind the lights. Behind the roar of the crowd, behind the perfectly edited social media posts, there's silence. And inside that silence, many NBA players are quietly drowning. Mental health is the battle no one sees. It doesn't show up on the stat sheet. It doesn't get replayed on ESPN, but it's real. Depression, anxiety, identity loss, isolation, they creep in when the cameras turn off. And the saddest part? Most players don't talk about it. Not because they don't feel it, but because they're not allowed to. Because showing emotion is seen as weakness in a world that demands toughness 24/7. From a young age, players are taught to suppress. Don't cry. Don't complain. Be a man. So when they enter the league, that mindset is already hardwired. No one prepares them for the emotional pressure, the constant judgment, the brutal criticism, the feeling that your worth is tied to performance. One bad game and your name is trending for the wrong reasons. One slump and suddenly everyone's questioning your value. And through it all, you're expected to smile, to be grateful, to be strong, even when you're breaking inside. The loneliness in the NBA is real. You're always traveling, always working, always surrounded by people, yet still somehow alone. It's hard to trust, hard to open up. Even teammates, friends, or coaches might not understand. And if you do speak up, there's always the fear, will they see me differently? Will this affect my playing time? Will the front office use this against me? So most players stay quiet. They suffer in silence. They distract themselves with training, games, fame, anything to avoid sitting still with the weight they're carrying. And for some, it becomes too much. The pressure to perform, the fear of failure, the expectations from fans, family, and the league, it builds and builds until something breaks. Some turn to alcohol, some to pills, some disappear into their own minds, locked behind smiles that don't reach their eyes. And when tragedy strikes, when a player finally opens up or falls apart, the world acts surprised. But this pain wasn't new. It was just hidden, covered by highlights, buried under endorsements, masked by success that never healed the soul. The truth is, fame doesn't protect you from darkness. Sometimes it amplifies it. Because when the whole world is watching, the last thing you want to admit is that you're not okay. That behind $1 million contract and the fan base chanting your name, there's still a human being with fears, insecurities, and deep emotional wounds. And until the culture changes, until the NBA values mental strength as much as physical toughness, players will continue to battle demons in silence, hoping someone sees the pain behind their performance. The price of fame and loss of privacy. Fame is seductive. It promises everything: attention, power, love, admiration. And for NBA players, it comes fast and hard. One breakout season, one viral highlight, and suddenly the world knows your name. You go from unknown to unforgettable. But what they never tell you is that fame isn't free. It comes with a price. And for most players, that price is their peace, their freedom, their ability to just be. Because once you're famous, your life no longer belongs to you. It belongs to the public. Every move is watched, every word is recorded, every mistake is magnified. Go out to dinner and strangers are snapping photos. Visit your family and reporters are asking questions. Say the wrong thing in a press conference and your character is under fire. It's a 24/7 spotlight, and there's nowhere to hide. You're expected to be perfect, not just as an athlete, but as a role model, a spokesperson, a public figure. But you're human. You feel pain, you get angry, you make mistakes, and in the real world, that would be okay. But in the world of fame, one slip and you're judged forever. Relationships become complicated. Trust becomes nearly impossible. People treat you differently, not because of who you are, but because of what you represent. Are they here because they care about you or because you're famous? That question haunts many players. Some isolate, others build walls. It's hard to open up when everyone wants something, and when the cameras are always rolling, even your most personal moments don't feel like your own anymore. Privacy becomes a distant memory, living in a fishbowl, and everyone's watching you drown. And then there's the internet. Social media gives fans a front row seat to your life, but it also gives them a weapon. Players are attacked online every day, criticized for their performance, their looks, their families, even their mental health. One bad game and they're trending, not because of what they did, but because of what people say they are. The hate is relentless. And while some brush it off, others absorb it. It gets under the skin. It makes you question your worth. You stop reading the comments. But the damage has already been done. Fame gives you a platform, but it takes your humanity. It elevates you while quietly erasing your right to be vulnerable, to be flawed, to be real. NBA players are idolized, but rarely empathized with. They're seen as larger than life, but underneath it all, they just want what everyone wants. To be understood, to be respected, to be free. But in a world where everyone wants a piece of you, freedom is the first thing you lose, and no amount of money or applause can buy it back.